Hey GV Gang, Brandon here with more Nintendo Switch 2 news. We've got some interesting ones on the list today, starting off with one about Donkey Kong Bonanza. So admittedly, we don't know a lot about Donkey Kong Bonanza yet. However, a user on Family Boards, and as reported by Nintendo Life, Donkey Kong Bonanza is being listed as a Nintendo Switch 2 local multiplayer title. So what is that multiplayer component? We don't really know yet. If I had to venture a guess, it would probably be something similar to Galaxy 1 and 2 or Super Mario Odyssey, where the second player is basically like a support, the Cappy. There was an accidental leak about a particular character in Donkey Kong Bonanza that I won't get into here, but I imagine the local multiplayer component probably involves that character in some way. Personally, I would hope it's a little more involved than what we got in like Super Mario Odyssey and the Galaxy games. It'd be cool if it was more than just like a support kind of thing. I'd prefer it if that player 2 got to play the same game as player 1. No one wanted to be the guest star in Super Mario Galaxy. No one wanted to be Cappy in Mario Odyssey. Honestly, more people play Odyssey as Cappy by themselves with 2 controllers than they do with another person. One of the things that bothered me about Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I played that entire game with my wife, which it's a great co-op game, but player 1 is Kirby and gets all the cool Kirby abilities, and player 2 is Banana? Player 2 is Bandana Waddle Dee, and he's cool on his own, but he only gets the one moveset, so not as interesting as Kirby. So I don't imagine that player 2 will get to do like all of the land destruction and whatnot that you can do in Donkey Kong Bonanza. I wonder if that would be too much on the system to handle, because it already feels like the game having that kind of terraforming is a lot. But who knows? Maybe local multiplayer could be like some mini games, or maybe there's even like a co-op campaign, something like Portal 2, which just had a separate campaign for 2 players. I hope that whatever's in the game is more interesting than we've had before. John pointed out to me as well that on April 21st on Nintendo Today, they were showing some like moves for Donkey Kong Bonanza on the app, and they showed it in 2 forms. They showed it with double Joy-Cons and 1 Joy-Con on its side. One would imagine that you can play like that because you can hand the second Joy-Con off to another player to play with you. But now this is a little bit more concrete. In other news, Nintendo and tariffs are 2 conversations we can't seem to avoid in 2025. But according to President Shintaro Furukawa, prices of the Switch 2 may change depending on the tariff situation. And Nintendo Life noticed this as well, but he didn't say whether they would go up or down. My assumption is that he means that they would go up, because they previously said, or Doug Bowser has previously said, that the tariffs did not affect Nintendo Switch 2 pricing. I still don't believe that was true. But we've seen other platforms going up in price. The Xbox Series consoles just went up in price. PlayStation 5 consoles have gone up in price on multiple occasions. It still hasn't happened here in North America yet, but I imagine the time is coming for that. So my suspicion is that price would go up. So if you wanted a Switch 2, you should probably get one now. Also, if prices were to go down, then we would have another Nintendo 3DS ambassador situation, where you'll have people who bought the console and then, less than a year later the price goes down. That feels kind of bad. I don't know if Nintendo would do something like the ambassador program again, or at the very least, like, give you some Nintendo credit that you could use on the eShop that's equal in value to the price differential. That's why I have a hard time seeing it being that the price goes down, but I would like to be hopeful, but I'm not. We've got Nintendo's quarterly financials, and nothing here is like super crazy, but there's some interesting things to note. Super Mario Party Jamboree is outpacing both Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars. Global cumulative sell-through in 24 weeks after release, Super Mario Party Jamboree is at 7 million, which is eclipsing Mario Party Superstars, as well as Super Mario Party. Super Mario Party Jamboree could go on to be the best-selling Mario Party game, and it's going to get new life on Nintendo Switch 2 thanks to Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV. That is... Well, no, that's not even the real title. It's Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Jamboree TV. That is a horrible title. Can we stop doing the weirdo Nintendo thing where titles are like 8 years long? Speaking of Nintendo Switch 2, though, Nintendo is forecasting in fiscal year 2026 that Nintendo Switch 2 will sell 15 million units in hardware and 45 million units in software. Based on pre-order counts that we're aware of so far, that could happen. It does seem like an aggressive number to me, but, you know, Nintendo Switch was a big hit, and I guess it would only make sense for the second one to be a hit as well. It's just interesting with the whole pricing situation and it being so much more expensive than the Switch 1 and even some of its competing platforms in some respects. Who knows? It's an interesting situation. I'm very curious to see where Nintendo Switch 2 will land in terms of its volume of sales. But Nintendo Switch 2 isn't the only thing that they're forecasting. They're forecasting 4.5 million units of Nintendo Switch, the original hardware, which is down, I think, 60% from last year. Yeah, last year was 10.8 million units, so less than half, which makes sense. You know, Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out, so Nintendo Switch hardware sales will probably fall off considerably. Are they going to outsell the PS2? I think it's going to get really close. Really close. And then suddenly they'll find 5 million more PlayStation 2s that got sold. Again. They're expecting 105 million in software sales. I think that makes a lot of sense. Nintendo Switch software is going to continue to sell. There's no reason for it not to. There's going to be a lot of Nintendo Switch games that are coming out that might not get Nintendo Switch 2 editions, and Nintendo Switch 2 owners are still going to want those games, so stands to reason that software sales will continue to go up. There's also a much bigger install base, right? So that just makes sense. What's interesting here, though, is Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade packs won't count as unit sales, but physical Switch 2 editions are counted as Switch 2 software, but digital downloads are counted as Switch 1 software. Is that because you can't buy the complete Nintendo Switch 2 edition of a game on the eShop? Do you have to buy the game plus the upgrade? I think that's where I'm getting confused. Why not just have an option where those things are bundled together? Honestly, we're going to go to the eShop right now. Forget it. Let me turn on my Switch. We're going to figure this out in real time. Let's search for The Legend of Zelda. Well, there it is. Breath of the Wild. We've got the original game. I have it physically, so I don't have it purchased here. We've got the expansion pass. We've got the game bundled with the expansion pass, the individual expansions, and then just the upgrade pack. And if we load up the upgrade pack here, this product upgrades the Nintendo Switch game to the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition software. To purchase the software, check Nintendo Switch eShop on Nintendo Switch 2. So obviously we can't buy it here because this isn't a Switch 2 and they don't want you buying software for a console that it won't work on. That makes sense. But yeah, it looks like you can't just buy a singular thing on the eShop. You're going to have to buy them separately. So that would explain why it works that way, but it is still a little weird that you can't just buy them together. I imagine there'll likely be bundles on the Switch 2 eShop, but they're not listed here yet, so we'll see. But if we look over at Pokemon, something interesting's happening. Scarlet and Violet have outsold Sword and Shield, and now are second behind Red and Blue for the best-selling Pokemon games of all time, at 26.79 million units sold, where Sword and Shield's at 26.72 million sold. So this was very close. It's very recent that this has happened. And for reference, Red, Green, and Blue are at 31.38 million units sold. So Scarlet and Violet are under 5 million units sold away, and they're on the list of Switch games that are getting a free update. And I doubt Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are getting game share. So frame rate and resolution are the only other things I can imagine that will be added to the game. Whether or not that pushes sales for Scarlet and Violet remains to be seen, but I think it's worth noting. we don't have a new generation of Pokemon to play this year. We do have Pokemon Legends EA coming out towards the end of the year, but Legends is now officially its own series, so Pokemon Legends Arceus sold about 15 million units, which I think is a shame because I think it's one of the best Pokemon games ever made, if not the best, but it didn't. Scarlet and Violet sold 26.7 million, and maybe it'll get the push it needs to surpass Red, Green, and Blue. I'm sure the fans will have plenty to say about that. Moving on. Let me know what you think about like the Donkey Kong multiplayer and the Switch sales projections and all that kind of stuff in the comments below. Like the video if you haven't. Subscribe to GVG for more Nintendo Switch 2 news and features and coverage and updates, and you know the drill. We also have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. We have a Discord server where we all hang out, we talk about the news, we play games together. You can find all that stuff down below. But until then, keep the games good and the vibes greater. Bye now.